Something that I learned is knowing when to be done working on something. I think it's easy to try and chase perfection, and I would write a poem, edit the poem, maybe not look at it for a while, come back to it again, and then have new eyes and be ready to rework it again and be excited about this new version and change maybe the layout or, one word. And then I thought, well, if I keep coming back to it, it keeps getting better and better, then how can I ever be done? Because in 3 years, I might, it might be the best it's ever been. And so for me, I had to really just really connect with myself and get to know myself and learn to trust myself.
This is People and Their Poems, a podcast about the poems that make a difference in our world. People and Their Poems is presented by Oronog Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, welcome to People and Their Poems podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Carlson, and I am joined today by Uxia Rose, a poet in Connecticut who has published an incredible book called Caterpillar Face. Welcome, Uxia Rose. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
And I'm happy you're here. As you know, I first encountered your poetry when I judged a contest for the Connecticut Poetry Society and read your amazing poem, Evanescent. And what blew me away about it was the layered meanings and the way you could read it from top to bottom, first line of each stanza, read it up. It opened up in so many different ways that I was just captivated. And so I'm really grateful now to have the chance to talk to you about your work and what inspires you. So what gets you writing poetry?
Well, all of my poetry is inspired by real life, is inspired by the human experience. Not necessarily only my own life, but also those around me. And I'm just fascinated by this journey of being a human here on Earth. And it's so complicated and strange and terrible and beautiful. And it's just fascinates me every day that we're in these bodies, all just on this planet and floating in space together. And so I'm just constantly grappling with that and trying to figure it out. And writing is the way that I do that. And as for sharing my poetry, I had always just written for myself for many years, and then one day I connected with a friend who also enjoyed writing, and I had just been reading him some things. Just to kind of get at his thoughts, and he was sharing some things with me. But I shared a short story with him, and I asked him what he thought it was about because I wasn't sure if the plot really came through. And he started crying, and I was completely shocked, and I was like, what's the matter? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? And he was like, I know exactly what this is about. It's about me. And then he started telling me all these stories from his really traumatic childhood, and just started completely opening up with me. And this was someone I hadn't known for very long, and this experience just split me open. And I was like, wow, I've just been hiding my poetry in notebooks and keeping it all to myself. But if I put myself out there and I share with other people and I connect with even just one other person and they feel less alone and they feel seen in their life, then I think I should be sharing it. So that person is a big inspiration of not only why I write, but why I share my poetry, because I know that, like I said, this human experience, we're all going through it together. And I think especially in this time, we all feel very isolated and like we're alone in the things that we feel and do, but really we're all doing and feeling the same things in different ways. And we can be vulnerable, then we can connect with other people and we don't have to feel so alone.
I hear you saying so many things that really resonate with me. I think that this idea of being vulnerable and taking the chance with your own work by putting it out there. I was just talking to Judith Liebman, who is the Branford Poet Laureate, and she talked about how when she has a workshop with people who are new to writing poetry, that the criteria of success she suggests is that you're happy with it and you're willing to share it with somebody else to hear their experience of it, which is not to say hear their criticism or their fault finding of it, but to hear their experience of it. So it's very much about, this is a piece of me that I'm willing to offer the world and see where they can join me on this journey. And it can be full of surprises, which is a big piece of the risk taking of putting your work out there. And reading through the work that you have in Caterpillar Face, you do that. And sometimes it's the other thing I heard you say is that, when you shared it with the friend who totally opened up and that split you open, is that there's a surreal sense of that the muses are speaking to us and we are channeling a story that doesn't completely belong to us. So that place where you connect could be a new place in your own work with somebody else.
Mm. And that's part of the reason I don't like to too deeply explain what a poem I've written is to me, because I think then when someone else reads it, they'll think of my experience. Where if I just share the poem and let you have your own experience with it, it's incredible what other people end up sharing and telling me that they feel from it, or how there could be someone I didn't even know something was going on in their life, and they're like, "This is exactly what's happening in my divorce," and I like, as you wrote exactly about it. I'm like, "Well, I didn't even. How could I know?" So, but it's just cool to see someone take something you've written and you think it belongs to you, and you get so at least I get very attached to my work and my own ideas when I see things. But I've really learned to let it become something else for different people, and it's really cool and very special.
It really is. And, I just kind of on a humorous note, and something else you said was about the poetic voice isn't always the autobiographical voice, which can be tricky because I think there's a tendency, even if you're reading somebody who died 300 years ago, to assume that writer is writing autobiographically in some
Mm,
form or fashion, that they aren't putting on a persona or trying on a perspective that isn't theirs to see where it takes them. And on a kind of a humorous note, I have we do a lot of poetry stuff. When there's contests, I tell my students, I'm a high school teacher, I tell them about it. And I had one student, I said, "You want to submit something? Because I know you're right." No, that's okay. Because apparently this student wrote a lot of stuff last year that landed her in the guidance department because all the bells and whistles went off. And yet she was just simply exploring an idea.
mm,
There was no need for an intervention. It was a poem. And our poems let us go there, those places that can be tumultuous or dangerous or taboo. Um, and we can just see what happens. It's kind of the beauty of the creative experience is it takes its own on its own life and it takes us someplace.
yeah, I think we're constantly trying to, well, hopefully not, but I think it is a tendency to put people in a box, and you want to try and label them and understand them from your perception in a way that's simple, very simplified. Even though people are very complicated, and I especially find that now that I've written this book, people will be like, "Oh, so you did this and you think this," and I'm like, "Well, that poem actually isn't even about me. Just because I wrote it doesn't mean this isn't a diary."
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I know
That's what
sometimes it's
made
hard for people to wrap their head around that.
Yeah, and that's part of the risk taking of sharing your work. But you know what? Would you like to share some of your poems so that our listeners can get a sense of what we're talking about on a deeper level?
Yeah, definitely. I have a few poems that I picked out to read um, that are just 5 poems that are spread out throughout Caterpillar Face. And so, just a little preview of some of the things you might find in there. The first poem is called The Traveler. I pack 2 bags to leave a place of disconnected disconnections, which make me numb and deaf. To head for a place of uncertainty, where glass shatters down my back and I sit with a half-dead dolphin. A place where I must feel my pain because I can't read the label on the bottle of pills and the nearest doctor they call witch. A place of real dangers, like a tropical plantation, too far for anyone to hear me scream. A place of insulting honesty, where a man lives with a plastic chair and sex is done in the streets. A place of strange mysteries that make leeches crawl on land and real men slice the skin under their tongues. A place that redefines cleanliness as I wear my underpants full of sand and little bits of flesh under my fingernails. A place that opens me wide to insert cows eating plastic and the taste of turtle. A place that makes me free to get swept out to sea in a current or die in a room with a bucket. A place that makes me guilty because you've never put fake butter on fake crackers or sung to worms in a cave. A place that disorients me because my bed is full of bugs and I am in the middle of an ocean. A place that makes me listen since I'm searching for sharks in winter while it's hot and sitting in a car full of strangers. A place I've become addicted to because I love to rip the skin from between my toes and sleep with a parasitic cat. This is the place that I travel to, the only place that I know. This is the reason I can't stay, but also the reason I must go.
Uxia, how did the series of disconnected disconnections that you described there, how did they come to you? Are you just writing and these images are flowing in, or can you just describe that a little bit in the composition of this poem?
This poem is, well, again, like all my poetry, it is inspired by all true experiences, but it's described, the poem in general describes a place, both physical, but um, also not physical, that this character, the traveler, which appears throughout the book, goes and escapes to leave a place of disconnected disconnections. And that is um, that is here, that is this world. I think we are just constantly disconnected from our bodies, from each other, from the outside world, from nature. I think that we are disconnected from love. I think we are disconnected from the truth. I think we're just constantly just in this space of almost like a floating space from everything around us that's trying to communicate with us. That's important. And so the traveler in this poem is trying to escape that place, trying to escape here in this modern world. And then I'll leave most of the rest of the poem open to interpretation. But yeah, it goes to this place and finds something different there that helps them reconnect.
Well,
So,
thank you. It's and I have to tell you, when I was reading this earlier today, the all the troubles that humanity has inserted into the planet that show up. It was unsettling in a very good and surreal way that this is our world. So I mean, I just think you create reality in a surreal way, if that's even possible. So thank you for that. So where are we going from The Traveler? What's next?
um, the next poem is called Starving. If you're following along, it's on page 18. I don't know if you are.
Yep, got it right here.
Starving. When did my bones become so beautiful, like branches on a tree poking? I want you to see them, see me, see how beautiful we are. Watch as I pull back the skin that's obstructing your view. I was hoping if I show you the one way I'm perfect, maybe you'll love me.
I loved that. That was one of my favorites this morning. I was having a conversation with your poem right on the page there. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But we will leave it to the listener and the reader when they get your book. But I just say my favorite image was this image of the human bones and the tree branches. I found tremendous comfort and beauty in that. So thank you.
Thank you. The next poem I was going to read is on page 79. It's called Poetry Teacher. God taught me poetry. I was clanky and awkward, sitting in the front row of church. He spoke to me of deer and breasts and lilies. I did not understand a single word, but it was the most beautiful thing I ever heard. God taught me poetry. When I was a long blade of grass bent over by the wind, somewhere the horizon didn't exist. In awe, I wrote down everything I could see. He whispered in my ear, "Love, that's poetry." God taught me poetry. As I watched a shriveled, shrunken corpse, still somehow alive, and an infant alone in the dirt chewing on a screw, he told me pleasure is a lie. We're just as beautiful when we weep and break and die. God taught me poetry while I bobbed in a docked canoe, compressed by an untouchable sky, universes reflected on the black water. He laughed as I gawked at his simple expression. Imagine what you write when you really see heaven.
Thank you. I just want to say that we're just as beautiful when we weep and break and die. Made me think of your poem Evanescent, and that poem that sort of makes the whole life cycle beautiful and whole. I just amazing. The movement in here is stunning, but we're leaving it to the reader. So just go to your next one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The next poem I was going to read is called Missing Walls, and it's on page 87. Missing Walls. After 7 years, the sweetest, I carry you away stiff. No one knows where you're sleeping. And here am I, in a world now strange and lacking, under a constant battle of mind and truth, as I walk through rooms with missing walls. How long will I be trapped in unsound structures that never collapse and elude all others? Insanity will carry me away as I carried you before anyone admits we're surrounded by missing walls.
Did you want to offer any commentary or observations about that one, or just no?
That poem is a poem about grieving someone and the space that they leave behind and how tormenting it can be that it seems like something so obvious is gone that how do you even go on, but no one else sees it or feels it. Everyone, you go outside, everyone's just going on with their life, and it's like how can we all just how can the sun be coming up again and going down again, and how can I wake up tomorrow, and how can I eat food, and how why isn't the news talking about this, and it's just the grappling with that feeling something major missing.
The lines, "How long will I be trapped in unsound structures that never collapse and elude all others?" That doesn't end with a question mark. It's so provocative, and the economy of language that's exactly it. We're entombed in a way, and you just do it so beautifully.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and the whole ending with acknowledging that we all have this. Bravo. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just had one more, and it's called Wasteless and Wasteland, and it's on page 97. This is time, our gift and coin. I traded it for sorrow, who hungers endlessly for time. Tomorrow, when I receive time, I'll trade it for something different, for all there is left. But for time, there isn't much left.
Just have to ask, did you have Elliot in mind at all when you wrote that, or?
Mm-mm.
Cool, cool. It's like one guy uses Wasteland and nobody else can, right? So, you know, yeah, no, it's our time is our gift and coin. I think I think the imagery that threads throughout the book, and the economy of language, and your sort of narrative style is so compelling. It's your poems put me in touch with emotions that I had put aside in the interest of getting through the day, getting things done, things that you feel like done and dusted. I've dealt with that. And it brought it back to the center in a way that said, this needs some more attention. So come back to me. So it's a very compelling and provocative collection. So thank you for sharing your poems with us today.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you.
Oh, it's a great book. Can you just share are there any things that you discovered about yourself in putting these poems together in this sequence called Caterpillar Face?
It was a huge learning experience in a lot of ways. So definitely not time to talk about all the things that I learned through this experience, but something that I learned is knowing when to be done working on something. I think it's easy to try and chase perfection, and I would write a poem, edit the poem, maybe not look at it for a while, come back to it again, and then have new eyes and be ready to rework it again and be excited about this new version and change maybe the layout or, one word. And then I thought, well, if I keep coming back to it, it keeps getting better and better, then how can I ever be done? Because in 3 years, I might, it might be the best it's ever been. And so for me, I had to really just really connect with myself and get to know myself and learn to trust myself. And there's a feeling and there's a knowing when I reach that point now. I'm like, this is saying what I want it to say. This is complete. It's complete enough, it's perfect enough in its imperfection. It could always be better, sure. Anything could always be better, but if we abided by that, then no one would ever finish anything or share anything. So there is a certain point of just understanding this is my first collection of poetry and it's not going to be perfect. And it's in a lot of ways, this was like learning how to ride, felt like learning how to ride a bike, where now when I go back and read it, I'm like, well, I might tweak this or change that now. But for the time and the version of myself that wrote this and was in that place, this was the best it could be then. And so in a way, it's a snapshot of who I was at that time. And yeah, but so learning to trust myself and learning to be and again, another exercise in vulnerability of that is this the best thing I could ever write in my entire life? Well, I hope not, because I want to write a lot more things. So hopefully it will just keep getting better and better. But it's okay that this isn't the best thing that was ever written for humanity. It's perfect in the version of myself that wrote it at the time that I wrote it. So just really coming to peace with that. was a big learning experience.
Well, I think it's a beautiful text and unique, and it's clearly your own voice. It's not an attempt to write in the style of. It's
Mm,
really original, and I think that for me that was really exciting and refreshing to see what you were doing with that and how there was a through line with the poems. And when I started and I could see what you were developing. I did the bad reader thing. I went to the end to see where it, and then I was back and forth, and then I was going sequentially. And I did that because that's what I did with your poem Evanescent. I went top to bottom, bottom to top, first lines of each stanza because that your work lends itself to different, entering it from different angles and seeing where it goes. And the transformation that's embodied in that caterpillar becomes apparent. And I think, just having an imprint with my husband with Oronog Mountain Publishing, I think I know what drives me to connect through the podcast and through publishing and the rest of it is people have voices that deserve to be heard. And creative people have a lot to offer this world in every given moment because there's a creative way to respond to what's happening around us that's engaging and makes room for others and gives us new ways to listen and to process. And I think that's vitally important to wait till we've arrived is to miss the boat, and
mhm,
um, and I also really feel very strongly that nobody should apologize for their work, and
mm.
I've been in those workshops where people are murderous and they're just like, this is a gift from somebody. They put their heart on the table and, you know, be gentle. Nobody asked you to bring a scalpel to the conversation. It's a gentle engagement of somebody's heart and soul. And I've also been at those workshops where it's hilarious where a poem has been workshopped so many times that the last comment they got took them back to the original that they wrote. I mean, like, oh, that's where I started, So I
Mhm.
think what you say about trusting yourself is really, really critically important because that's how you protect what's original and nuanced about your own voice.
Yeah, it's it's hard to not let everyone's ideas get to you, but I really believe that poetry is an art form and art is subjective. And even if you just look at popular culture and poetry, but other all different forms of art, you might look at something and or read a poem and you think, well, that's terrible. But then there's someone out there who loves it and is just resonates so deeply with them and that what you may think is such an ugly piece of artwork they put on their wall and it brings them peace every day. So it also was a process to learn. I'm not trying to, because now, we want acceptance, we want, everyone want, a lot of people want fame and they want everyone to love them and love their work and what they put out there. And it's realizing though that everyone is not someone who's going to connect with you. And if you're your authentic self, you're going to find the people who resonate with your work. And so it's not about connecting with everybody, it's about connecting with the people that you can connect with. And that's unique and special to you in your artwork. And so yeah, just I think an artist should just try and be as true to themselves as possible, and then they'll find their most true audience and the people who are going to resonate and love their work the most.
So well said, Uxia. I think, once upon a time, it was called vanity publishing, this idea that you had to put your poems between a cover, two covers. And you weren't Robert Frost or Billy Collins or Mary Oliver. So who do you think you are? That's kind of condescending thing. And I think I love that we're in a place culturally and technologically that we can have these conversations. They don't have to be mediated by a big publishing house. Nobody gets to say you're worthy. You discover your worth in yourself, and you project it, and your light shines on those who are looking for that light. And I think, I'm old enough to remember when the internet was new, and that was like the great hope for democracy, that this was going to be this thing that made these things happen. And I guess the good news is there are people and poets and creative people making it happen, in a world that, the commercial capitalistic world wants to own it and put it back with the way it used to be in a digital setting. And I think so long as we keep doing what we do, and people like you are producing poetry at the caliber that you're producing, and being true to yourself, I think that is our hope, right?
Yeah. And I think it's a two-edged sword, because this modern capitalist society is also what creates the opportunity for someone like me to self-publish and have the opportunity to be as successful as I can be on my own, and receive out what I put in. And so I'm excited to see
Oh,
where this goes. So we'll see.
I hear you. I just think this tension is always in our culture, and that there are creative people who are making it work is the hope. Do you have any advice for anybody else out there who, like you, might have their poems that they're keeping to themselves, how they might make a first step to sharing what they have and maybe touching other lives the way you have?
Um, I think my advice to someone who wants to put together a collection of poetry, two things. What was the difference between me just having poems that I sporadically wrote down here and there versus actually compiling a book and completing it and editing it and actually finishing that process, is that I committed to write every single day, which was very hard for me personally, because I'm someone who, I like to just kind of go off vibes and feelings. And when I feel like writing and I'm feeling creative, then I want to go write. And then I want, usually a lot of, it just comes so easy then. But the flow state of creativity doesn't always just naturally come. You have to learn how to cultivate it. And if you're not writing every day, then and you're just waiting for that. I mean, with the way life is, you could write a poem 1 month and not write another poem for 3 months. That's good. So I committed to writing every day. And there would be days where I was like, I'm having a terrible day. I don't feel creative at all. Nothing good is going to come out of me sitting down to write, but I did it anyways because of that commitment. And sometimes on the days that I felt absolutely not creative, the most incredible things would come out. And so, and you have a different perspective on those days to write about than the days where everything's great and flowing and vibey. And so, yeah, I would say write every day, no matter how you feel. And the other thing I did in that commitment is it could even just be one word. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I have to go sit for 3 hours. It was an achievable commitment. And sometimes I would just have an idea or one word I could add to a poem and write that down. And what that did was it kept the momentum going. And so that the next time I sat down to write, I wasn't starting from scratch. So that was something that I did that worked for me. That might not work for everybody, but that was me. That was the difference between me completing this and the first draft I ended up putting together in about like 2 months. And obviously a lot of those poems already had a form, that I'd written a long time ago, but to actually make it the rough draft for the collection. So yeah, that was something that worked for me. And then the other piece of advice that I would give is, which may be very unexpected, but I think that it's important to have a healthy lifestyle, because like anything you do in life, how you show up is how you're going to present yourself in that. And I found the hardest times for me to write when I was really tired, or when I didn't feel good, when I felt ill. And so just cultivating a lifestyle where I felt my best as often as possible, I was able to show up to write and do my best. I mean, it's like, if you're an Olympic athlete, you're not going to come to practice sleeping on 2 hours and just eating, garbage food the day before, and, whatever, being hungover, you're not gonna run well, or whatever your thing is. Writing is the same. And yes, it's creative, and it's, subjective, and I think there's a lot of flexibility in what you can do with it. But there also is craft, and there also is technical aspects, and I think you have to show up, and how you show up is going to matter for what you put out. So,
well, thank you for that advice. I think that is as original as you are. I've yet to have anybody point that out, that you need a healthy lifestyle and that commitment. And both are pieces of advice that underscore recognizing your inherent worth, first as a human being, and second as a creative human being, and I guess third as a creative human being with a voice that deserves to express itself and find an audience. So thank you for that. I hope that our listeners will jump on to Amazon and order their copies of Caterpillar Face and have as rich an experience of your poetry as I did. So I really am grateful to you for joining me today, Uxia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation and being here.
This has been People and Their Poems, presented by Oronog Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check the show notes for more information about this episode. Visit oronogmountainpublishing.com for more information about our services and writing opportunities. And visit peopleandtheirpoems.net to learn more about the podcast.